All right. I know the 49ers have already overcome a lot this season, but there's going to be more to overcome. Developing situation over the course of this week traces back to an oblique injury that their quarterback, Mac Jones, suffered on the very last San Francisco offensive snap against the Rams. And Mac was throwing at practice on Wednesday, but on Thursday, he wasn't throwing. Adrian Martinez was doing all the throwing for the 49ers. Martinez wearing the number 4. And here is Mac Jones, not only with the knee brace, but also with the oblique injury that's forcing him to stand around and watch Mick Lombardi, a coach with whom he's very familiar. New England days, now with San Francisco, the 49ers QB coach. Over there on the left, that's Mick Lombardi doing all the throwing for Mac Jones at practice. And then you'll see here in a little bit when Mac starts running, he's definitely hobbled because he's dealing with the knee and the knee brace and obviously now the oblique. I asked Adrian Martinez yesterday in the locker room if he had ever been the only quarterback throwing at practice, and he said it had been a long time since the lower levels of football because Brock Purdy was working off on the side field with his turf toe injury. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the 49ers might do here on Sunday. They have said that they think Mac Jones is going to be ready to play. You can see how hobbled he is there. But it is worth contingency planning at the very least at this point, given the fact that Mac Jones has been so limited in practice this week. Kyle Shanahan after practice confirmed that Mac was unable to throw on Thursday, but that the 49ers expect him to be ready to throw on Sunday with whatever techniques they use from here to there to get ready. Even if he is ready to throw at the beginning of the game on Sunday, remember that Tampa blitzes a lot. Todd Bowles sends a lot of pressure. I think, just watching tape, I think a huge part of the 49ers' potential success in this game is going to be reliant on the quarterback being mobile enough to sidestep blitzes. I said this yesterday. Mac is not going to have to run a 40-yard dash. He's not going to have to sprint back and forth, but he's going to have to be mobile enough to use his footwork to buy half a second here, a quarter second there, a tenth of a second here, so he could beat a blitz and then take advantage of the man coverage downfield. Now, Adrian Martinez, he has yet to play in an NFL regular season game. Adrian, again, I've got a shout out to the Central Valley, 559. Born in Hanford, went to Clovis West, then played a long college career at Nebraska before transferring to Kansas State. Somebody who passed for over 10,000 yards and rushed for a lot of yards in college. So a dual threat quarterback through and through over the course of his college career. Also was in the UFL where he won the MVP award, led his team to a championship where, I watched some of his UFL tape and Adrian Martinez was playing a much different style than he was in college. He was beginning to be coached in the pro style of playing, a lot more under center stuff, definitely still using his legs. Arm talent was there. I don't think it's anything to scoff at that he was the MVP of one of the lower professional leagues. It means that he's a leader. It means that he was able to play the quarterback position against guys who are paid to play the game, even though they weren't at the NFL level. It's a big step up from what he had to do in college. And I think the 49ers took a liking to that. They've taken a liking to the fact that he had a lot of snaps in college, just like Brock Purdy. And Robert Saleh knew Adrian Martinez a little bit from the New York Jets building. So when the 49ers saw both of their QB3 options in the preseason flame out, neither Tanner Mordecai nor Carter Bradley looked very good for San Francisco. They let both of those guys go, and they brought in Adrian Martinez to be the QB3 instead, with the primary understanding that his mobility would be particularly useful on the 49ers scout team because he could simulate the quarterbacks they're about to face. So I'm sure that Adrian Martinez has given the 49ers some Baker Mayfield looks this week. Mayfield's got some mobility to him, and Adrian Martinez is able to simulate that for the defense. But now they might need Adrian Martinez for actual in-game purposes, because even if Mac Jones starts, there's no guarantee that he gets through the full game. Yesterday, somebody asked Mac hey, would you have been able to come back from that oblique injury on Thursday? And Mac really wasn't able to answer the question. He said, I guess we'll never know because the game was over. I didn't have to take any more snaps after that. It's a good thing that the 49ers set up overtime the way that they did, right, in that football game, because then it was just up to the defense to get the stop and then get off of the field. But if the Rams had kicked the field goal, that game would have been prolonged, and Mac Jones might have been tested to go out there. Maybe the 49ers would have had to throw Adrian Martinez out there. Anyway, when you look at this matchup against Tampa Bay and you see all the blitzing that's probably going to come from Todd Bowles, and you see the status that Mac was in over the course of that entire Thursday game against the Rams, you do have to wonder if Adrian Martinez will be called on. Not necessarily if Mac is permanently out of the game, but for a snap here, a snap there, take some pressure off of Mac Jones. I mean, there could be instances where Mac has to be on the sideline for a little bit longer. I'm just contingency planning for the 49ers in my head right now, thinking about how this might work. I say that mobility against this Tampa Bay blitz is going to be important, and a lot of people will say, well, just throw Adrian Martinez in there. He's a dual threat quarterback. Mobility comes in many different sizes and shapes in the NFL. I'm talking more about the footwork mobility that Mac Jones brings to the table. Tennis player when he was younger. I guess Nick Saban called him McEnroe, and Mac is rather sick of that nickname. I guess Nick Saban's still calling him that on TV. But that subtle mobility is what's most important, especially within the context of the game plan. The Bucs also have a lot of injuries, and their injuries have piled up at different positions. At wide receiver, Chris Godwin's not going to play in this game. Fibula issue for Chris Godwin, but they're also not going to have Zion McCollum, one of their cornerbacks. In fact, we should look at the extent of the injury report. This was the one that came out yesterday. So you could see, I mean, the 49ers obviously have a really, really long one, but Tampa Bay has issues as well. They're the number 27 pass defense in the league. They blitz a ton. And with somebody like Zion McCollum very likely out of this game, with Jamel Dean, he's probably going to play, but he's been also limited with a hip issue. With somebody like Benjamin Morrison, that's cornerback depth for Tampa Bay, not available. There's a reason why this is the number 27 pass defense this year. This why this defense is underperforming relative to what we've normally seen out of Todd Bowles' units. And the 49ers are going to be trying to attack this unit with quick passes, with a timing rhythm game, something that could beat what is almost certainly going to be an aggressive blitz strategy from Todd Bowles, because why wouldn't you try to hit Mac Jones if you know that he's injured entering the game? And for the 49ers to execute on a game plan that involves that, I mean, you go back to the Rams game, Mac Jones was getting the ball out in 2.4 seconds. You're going to need somebody who's very well-versed in the system, who's got really good footwork, and who's got a quick release. And to be 100% honest, we just don't know how Adrian Martinez would be able to execute a system like that at this level. Maybe you'd be fine. In 2022, the 49ers went to QB3, Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy lit it up, and now he's a $53 million man. So you can't say that this would be a train wreck. You also can't say that it would be a smashing success. It would just be a huge wild card. I mean, Adrian's played some pro style in a game situation back in the UFL. In college, he was more of a read option, dual threat kind of guy, but obviously very impressive as he did that. It would just be a big projection to the NFL level because the 49ers have primarily had him running scout team. But they brought him in for a reason. They brought him in because he could do the scout team stuff with his dual threat capability, but they also felt they could develop him into a good quarterback at this level. You don't waste your time with a roster spot, and now he's on the 53-man roster if you don't think he could do both of those things. So, just brace yourselves here because this is going to be a very, very interesting weekend. Just know that the 49ers barely got through at quarterback against the Rams. Brock Purdy's almost certainly not going to be available for San Francisco. They're trying to get that toe right. They may not even put him on the flight so he could maximize his toe recovery over the course of these next few days. It's a very, very long flight to Tampa, so don't expect Brock Purdy to be part of this mix. It's going to be Mac Jones and Adrian Martinez who are part of this mix. The 49ers will go through whatever measures they need to get Mac ready to throw on Sunday. I think part of the reason he didn't throw on Thursday was to preserve his body. This guy had 86 snaps, 56 dropbacks, and 49 throws against the Rams, all while he was hurt. So obviously some preservation is very, very needed. But I do note that he did throw more on Wednesday than he did on Thursday. I'm going to be down at the facility in a few hours to gauge the status of Mac Jones on this day. Mike has a video of Mac Jones talking about the injury from the press conference yesterday. So we can go ahead and play this one. I think somebody asked Mac if he would be able to play if this game were today or Thursday, because the question was asked yesterday. And this was his answer. This is courtesy 95.7 The Game.
Game's not today, right? So I don't really do like the theoretical questions, but definitely feel like I have a good plan in place, and the game's on Sunday, and we'll see how I feel when we get there.
Sure.
So he's got a plan in place. I know that they've got painkillers. It's an oblique injury. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I know that Steve Young back in, it was the year the Packers won the Super Bowl, so I think it was 1996, right? Steve Young had a rib issue, and he couldn't really throw over the course of the week. And they did a bunch of the painkillers over the course of the pregame, and nothing was working. And Steve went out there, and Steve couldn't really throw, couldn't lift his arms above his head. So he lasted a series against the Packers, and they had to go to the backup, Elvis Gerbach. Remember him? And the 49ers lost. I think it was 35-14 or 35-21 to the Packers, who would go on to win the Super Bowl. Green Bay was the best team that year, and Steve still couldn't shake the pain. He's told this story before. He said that a few days later, he went to see the doctor again because his rib was still in a ton of pain, and the doctor just popped it back into place. It had been dislocated for like a lot of time. And obviously the pain-killing injections weren't doing much because it was actually a dislocated rib. It wasn't just something that you could numb away. And it was really frustrating because the 49ers season was already over at that point, and they had lost to the Packers, and Steve Young couldn't play. It was all part of that crazy time. Now, I'm not saying that Mac has a dislocated rib that the 49ers haven't diagnosed. He's got some kind of oblique injury. I'm just saying that this kind of stuff has happened before, where quarterback is dealing with some pain and he's having to get his body right over the course of the week. And I think fans should have a little bit more appreciation for what physically these players go through, especially somebody who's playing that quarterback position hurt for the 49ers last Thursday and had to throw 49 times. I mean, that is the bigger crux of this issue, is that the 49ers so far have not been able to establish any sort of explosiveness running-wise. And because of that, they've had to throw the ball 40.4 times per game. That is the most in the NFL. They're leading the league in passing yardage. They're leading the league in attempts per game, which means they're leading the league in dropbacks per game. And in this NFL, this modern league, that is going to expose your quarterbacks to abuse. It almost is no surprise that both of the 49ers' primary QBs are hurt right now because they're dropping back over 40 times a game. They've had to do that to win. I'm not faulting the strategy. Kyle Shanahan is having a hell of a year. He's calling the right plays for the 49ers. But when you speak about it from a sustainability standpoint, how do you get through this entire season with the quarterbacks intact enough to potentially move on to the playoffs and deliver for you there? The only way that's going to happen is if you take some pressure off of the offensive line and take some pressure off of these QBs themselves in the drop back game. One thing about Tampa Bay, they blitz a ton. They've got massive Vita Vea in the middle. They've got Levante David, the linebacker, in the middle. They've got Antoine Winfield, the safety, in the middle. They're really strong up the middle, and they have the game's #1 run defense by efficiency and success rate. However, you saw Seattle rush for over 100 yards against Tampa Bay last week. How? They burned some of the aggressive blitzes. The 49ers' longest run of the year is 19 yards. That's Brian Robinson Jr. McCaffrey is 15 yards. They're going to have to find a way to pop off some explosives to the perimeter against this Tampa Bay defense. Take advantage of some of the over-aggressiveness of the blitz. Kyle Shanahan's going to have to be in his back. He's beaten Todd Bowles in 3 straight seasons, 2022, 2023, 2024, even shorthanded last year. They took advantage of some of that aggressiveness. Yes, the big play last year that I remember was the rainbow to Christian McCaffrey. That beat a blitz, right? It was an unblocked blitz. Purdy got destroyed, got the ball high up in the air, dropped it into a bucket to Christian McCaffrey. Purdy also beat a lot of pressure on the George Kittle throw. They had Ricky Pearsall for his first touchdown, beating Antoine Winfield, who was dealing with some injuries last year. Superstars made plays for the 49ers. Bottom line is they beat the pressure. When I look at how Seattle beat the pressure last week, I know they lost the game, but they put up 35 points. They were able to blitz against the run. Run against the blitz. Sorry, other way around. Tampa does blitz against the run. Seattle, though, ran against the blitz. And the 49ers are going to have to pop off some explosives here. Expect to see some negatives in this game, like negative plays, because Tampa does blitz. But blitz is boom or bust. Inherently, it is a boom or bust proposition. So expect the Bucs to notch some losses for the 49ers, but it will be worth it for San Francisco if they can rip off some runs of over 20 yards. They're not going to have George Kittle, so I think this is one of those areas where you run into an issue if you're the 49ers, because you'd much rather have George back in this game blocking on the perimeter. I'll tell you, though, if Juwan Jennings is back, and I expect that to happen, that helps the 49ers a lot because he's such a good run blocker out on the perimeter. They have to be good to the edges in this game because Vita Vea weighs 350 pounds in the middle. You're not going to challenge Vita Vea consistently and win, especially with the 49ers. They've got a lighter front in the middle. I think the front for the 49ers offensively is good at some things, but one thing they're not good at is moving really, really big fire hydrant defensive tackles around. And the biggest fire hydrant in the entire league is Vita Vea. Out of Milpitas, by the way. Shout out to Milpitas, since we're shouting out to Hanford as well. I know that we've got some of you watching down in Milpitas. What would you call Milpitas? Yeah, Milpitas has got to be South Bay, right? It's not East Bay anymore. It's the Southeast Bay. So I take Bart down from the city to Levi's Stadium a lot. I've seen some fans on it. We all talk when I head down, and I take Bart all the way down to Milpitas. And then I bike over from Milpitas to Levi's Stadium. And, I could work on the way, which is really cool. I could also take the light rail over from Milpitas. But I think by the time you hit Milpitas, you're talking about the South Bay at that point. But it's really on the border, because you go a little bit north of Milpitas, like Fremont, places like that. That's still East Bay, right? I would say Fremont's Hayward's definitely East Bay. Then you move up to San Leandro, and then of course you're going to get to Oakland. But I just wonder what that border between the South Bay and the East Bay really is. Back to the injury report. 49ers and the Bucs. Could see this is the one from yesterday. There's not going to be an official one for today for a couple more hours, but obviously the 49ers one is very, very long. We already knew that, though. For Tampa Bay, they've got a lot of guys dealing with stuff, but there's not going to be any Chris Godwin or Mike Evans for the receiving core. Also, no Bucky Irving, the running back. Those guys did not practice this week. Those guys are going to be out of this game. Last year, there was no Mike Evans. There was no Chris Godwin for Tampa Bay against the 49ers. But this year, Tampa's got Emeka Egbuka, the rookie wide receiver. He was still in college last year. So remember, in 2024, it was Baker Mayfield to Cade Otton on short throws all day long. The offense for Tampa was very limited last year. Egbuka is a big difference maker for this team in 2025. I mean, he went crazy against Seattle. He's been awesome over the first few games of this season. The 49ers are going to have to account for him. But the fact that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are both out of this game is a big arrow up for the 49ers, because they can focus a lot more resources from their defensive backfield on Emeka Egbuka. And guess where the 49ers have been strongest as a unit this year. That to me, this is one of the coolest developments for San Francisco. The strongest unit for the 49ers this year has been cornerback defensively. Blue is good, red is bad. There is no blue in the ratings allowed by the 49ers corners. So you're telling me that if Mike Evans is out, if Chris Godwin is out, if Emeka Egbuka is the one really, really legit weapon that's in, Sterling Shepard can also, he caught the game-tying touchdown pass last week against Seattle, so you got to watch out for Shepard. But I think with this group of corners, the 49ers should be able to find a way to cover Emeka Egbuka if they could find a way to get some pressure on Baker Mayfield. Before Nick Bosa went out, the 49ers had generated a 34% pressure rate with their line. After they lost Nick Bosa, it's been a 17% pressure rate. They only got 20% against Matthew Stafford last week. They've have one above average pass rusher healthy and available for this game. Now we'll see what Kevin Givens can do if he does return for the 49ers. But again, I went through, I said blue is good, red is bad. This is the 49ers defensive line. There is a lot of red. And Yetur Gross-Matos, who's responsible for this blue, is not going to be available. Nick Bosa is responsible for the top row blue, not going to be available. So all you have is Bryce Huff when it comes to above average pass rushers. And you've got to find a way to get some disruption. So because you can't cover Emeka Egbuka forever. You get Cade Otton too is a good tight end for Tampa Bay. So how do you get that pressure? I think it's all about Charlie Heck on the right side, the right tackle for the Buccaneers. He's the second worst right tackle pass blocking wise so far this year in all of football. He's given up 22 pressures on the year. Tristan Wirfs is one of the best. I mean, you listen to Greg Papa talk, he thinks Tristan is the new Trent Williams on the left side, and I don't necessarily disagree. Tristan Wirfs, he came back from injury a couple weeks ago, and he's looked really good. I mean, he probably the reason why Tampa had the time and the ability to put up 38 points on Seattle on the road last week. Tristan Wirfs sealing off that left side. But all it takes is pressure against one guy to hurry a quarterback. That's the thing about an offensive line. You could have four really good offensive linemen, but if one of those guys is leaking oil, giving up a ton of pressure, then the quarterback still has to throw earlier. The quarterback is still forced into decisions that he probably doesn't want to make. So Charlie Heck, who played for the 49ers for a couple games last year when they were decimated by injury, he's the right tackle. Luke Gadecki is not playing right now for the Bucs. They got a backup right tackle who's given up 22 pressures over 4 games this season. I think Bryce Huff lines up over Charlie Heck more often in this game, and I think the 49ers just try to exploit the hell out of that matchup. At the very least, you force a tight end to stay in, to chip a little bit. You get some extra help, and you take an eligible out of the equation. If you take an eligible out of the equation, you can add extra help to try to cover Emeka Egbuka. So I think it's a big deal for the 49ers defensive hopes that neither Chris Godwin nor Mike Evans is going to play in this game. You're going to have Egbuka, you're going to have Sterling Shepard, you're going to have Tez Johnson, and you're going to have Ryan Miller as the top 4 receivers for Tampa Bay. So you can see that Tampa Bay is, a world of hurt themselves. I mentioned the defensive backfield for the Bucs. That's not a good situation either. Missing Zion McCollum, one of their starting cornerbacks. The 49ers, I think almost certainly are going to have to operate on a quick passing basis just to preserve the health of their QB, Mac Jones. And we started this show saying, does Mac play the full percentage of snaps in this game, or do we see Adrian Martinez as well? Because whenever a quarterback cannot throw on a Thursday, even if they plan to give him some painkillers and he is expected to be ready to go on Sunday, even if that is the plan, I'm not saying it is. I'm not privy to the detailed information that the 49ers are going to use to try to get Mac Jones ready. But even if that's the plan, there is a big concern. You have to talk about QB2. QB2 in this case is Adrian Martinez. No NFL experience. We talk about the blitzing. We talk about from Tampa Bay. Todd Bowles is going to send the house of the 49ers, but we also talk about the Bucs' weaknesses on the back end. If you don't have Zion McCollum, if that secondary is not at full strength. This is the number 27 pass defense in all football for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If these are all issues, you've got to be able to beat them quick. And you beat the run blitz with your own run game, with the perimeter run game. So Jawan Jennings coming back probably for the 49ers is a huge, huge deal. But then what do you do from a rhythm standpoint off of that run game, tie it into the outside zone? I mean, it's something the 49ers haven't really had the luxury of doing so far this year because they haven't run the ball effectively, because they haven't, the stuff hasn't lined up yet for the 49ers for multiple reasons. And we've talked about all those reasons, but this is a game where they might have to finally do it, where maybe the aggressive Tampa Bay blitzes allow them to pop off those explosive runs and then tie the pass game into the outside zone success. And it's still going to be a quick release thing. It might not be as crazy as it was against the Rams, where they had to throw 49 times without much of a run game. So it was just snap, throw, snap, throw, snap, throw. A lot of your run game was essentially a pass game, a short pass game that mimicked the run game. It delivered, some of the benefits that a run game is meant to deliver when you're throwing very, very quickly. So expect Christian McCaffrey to be very heavily involved again. That is an intricate game plan, by the way. When Jimmy Garoppolo had to run it against the Rams a few years ago, you've got to have a quarterback with a quick release to be able to execute, to get that ball out, to set guys up for yak. The 49ers had their most yak yesterday, or the last game on Thursday of the entire season. It is not easy to deliver with the accuracy and timing to hit receivers in stride in the right windows to execute that kind of offense. I think a lot of casual fans will see short throws and think, there's not a lot on the quarterback's plate. There was a lot on Garoppolo's plate. There's a lot on Mac Jones's plate. This is the formula the 49ers use when they're shorthanded, when they don't have the full assortment of weapons, when they're facing a very aggressive defense. Now, the Rams don't blitz nearly as much as the Bucs do, but the Bucs are going to bring a lot of heat, and I think a lot of the same principles that the 49ers had to use against the Rams on Thursday night will apply in this game. I'm going to answer some questions. We can talk a little bit more about the injury situation. I'm going to be heading down to the 49ers facility in a couple hours. I'm going to get in the bay. I'm going to swim. I don't know if you guys saw my Alcatraz commercial video is out. One of my favorite ones, actually. This one was exciting. This was the last episode, the Fitness SF Alcatraz one. We'll have to play that. I'll mix it into one of my uploads. Maybe the upload a little bit later today. It was like a 5-part commercial series, and I played one at the very end. I think I got to loop the others in now that they're all out. So that's in the books. I got to get back in the water, though. It always sets my day up for a good start. Fly out to Tampa in an hour. In fact, looks like I need to check in right now. Who's on the flight from SFO to Tampa direct tomorrow at 9 o'clock? I am, and I'm checking to see if I'm going to get upgraded tomorrow. You guys better not. Nobody better leapfrog me for that upgrade. It's a long flight. We're going to be going 4 to 5 hours from here to Florida. Right now, or at least when I checked last night, I was in line for the upgrade. And if one of my viewers decides to leapfrog me for the upgrade, I'm not going to be happy. I probably shouldn't be talking about this right now because somebody's more likely to leapfrog me, but we got to see where I am on the upgrade list. We got the boarding pass. We take off at 9:03 a.m. out of San Francisco, gate E11. They're probably going to change my gate 5 times before the flight happens, though, so that doesn't really matter right now. All right, here we go. We're going to view the flight status. We're going to go to upgrades. We're number 2 on the list. All right, with 3 open spots. Number 2 on the, I don't know if you could see it. Yeah, number 2, Lombardi, David, on the list. The person right after me is checked in. So fingers crossed. We'll see if that works out because it is a long flight. Stadium tour is going to be happening on Sunday. You bet. Can't wait. The stadium tours are a great part of the job. And it's going to be warm, but I'm going to brave the heat in Tampa Maybe we'll get up to the very top row of the stadium, all right? That's what I mean, that's the tradition. I try to get up to the very top row of the stadium. All right. So today I'm going to head down to the 49ers facility, either Mac Jones or Adrian Martinez or both. Very excited to see exactly what happens. Time for me to go swimming. We'll see you guys soon. Big update coming, though, from that practice. So hit that subscribe button, hit the alarm bell button, and also the predictions for this game. Did I predict the 49ers to win or not? I'm not going to reveal it yet, but they're up on the San Francisco Standard, and the link is in the description. I could pin the link also right now in the chat section or in the comment section. So everybody go and check that out. Sign up for the Standard and be ready for the big Mac Jones update coming a little bit later today.